she is well, and she is in good hands at this time. We've also located Mr. Easley. Mr. Easley is in custody with the San Francisco police. It has been a long evening. We understand that Brittany has been in touch with her family, and I'm sure they're anxiously awaiting her return to Virginia. We have a lot of events unfolding here. A lot of things are happening quickly, and we're doing everything possible to gain as much information as possible, but please understand that the information we have at this time is very limited.
Good evening, I'm Sam Champion in for Nancy Grace, and it all happened right here, right on this show live, right in front of you, out of Roanoke, that press conference that says 12-year-old Brittany Smith is safe. She's talking with police right now. Let's go to Paul Penzone, former Sergeant Phoenix PD and child advocate. Paul, from the police standpoint, this bombshell discovery of these two found in, of all places, San Francisco, California. Nobody's thinking that they might be there or looking for them there. And now we have this big question that comes up in the press conference of extradition. So what happens now? What do they do now in this case?
Well, I want to point, two things were critical as to why this was this is a heroic recovery for this young lady to still be alive, but that police department did an exceptional job of keeping the focus on her and not allowing for it to be diverted with details of that homicide. That was key, because with that, it made the exposure about recovery. And the fact that the news media, this show particularly, was so engaged that where we thought she was in the southeast and she literally ended up in the northwest, that's why we were able to recover her safely, because people were engaged by what they were seeing looking for this little girl. Extradition, really, unless things have changed much, if the process is not so much probable cause for the crime itself, but that you have a crime and that the person in custody is the person you're looking for, that you can prove that identity. It does take about 30 days should they try to fight it, but if he's willing to waive that, he could be back in Virginia within a few days. But this is just an amazing situation. Now, for that little girl, one thing I want to point out, when there are victims of sexual abuse, what they go through to recover from that is traumatic and extremely difficult. But she has an added variable, and that is the fact that she may know information about that homicide. So she's got a long road to recovery, and she's going to need a lot of love and support.
Oh, absolutely, Paul, because here's some things that we don't know, even though a lot came out in this press conference. We don't know if Brittany saw any of this happen. We don't know when she was told that that police say her mother was murdered. We just don't know any of this right now. And so here's a 12-year-old. This is a little girl. This is just a little girl who is having to deal with this being taken across the country and all of this coming in at one time. Kelly Sandin, you're a former...
There's an additional...
Go ahead.
I was going to say there's an additional factor to keep in mind. She may be a critical witness. If he shared information with her while they were on the run there, or if she saw anything at all, she's a witness in this trial, in the future trial. So there are so many variables that are just very upsetting for this poor little girl to have to go through.
And, you know, there was all this new tape released today, 6 minutes of new tape of them in this Virginia Walmart, where she's walking very close to him, but there's really not a lot of contact between them. And when you watch this tape, it actually, you know, just casually if you're watching it, it gives you chills to think of this situation. This girl isn't happy and speaking out, and they're not moving around the store. She's staying very close to him, almost as if she was directed to stay very close to him. Kelly Sandin, you're a former prosecutor, as I was going to say. You're a family law attorney now. When we talk about this, and we never want to forget that Brittany is a victim, certainly here. What do they do about extradition of Easley? What's your first, if you're prosecuting, what's the first thing you do to get him back so we can get some answers?
Well, you immediately file a motion to have him extradited back, and he's crossed state lines. He took a minor across multiple states. I don't really think you're going to have a problem doing it. It should be pretty easy to drag him back and start investigating the murder, but separate and apart, we have the credit card fraud, we have the identity theft, we have the abduction of the minor, because even if she went with him willingly, Brittany can't consent to anything. She's not an adult, and she's 12.
Absolutely. And there are people that are saying, did she go willingly? And I just want to say she's 12 years old. Nothing of this is willingly. She would be easily led in a situation and easily manipulated in a situation. And you're right to bring up the fact that he was using Brittany's mom's credit cards on Friday, the day that police believed Brittany's mom was actually murdered. So all of this combined together. All right, we're going to put some law on this and see what happens. Randy Kessler, defense attorney. Randy, let's say you're defending him. What do? Do you start fighting extradition? Do you say there's no proof? What's your line here?
Well, you know, my hands were sort of tied, and he tied my hands. He should have turned himself in as soon as he knew he was wanted. You know, the fact that he was caught means he didn't do anything to try to mitigate the circumstances. You know, there is the death penalty in Virginia. If you've purposefully, willfully, and deliberately, premeditatedly murdered somebody in the course of an abduction, he could face the death penalty. I'm begging for a life sentence, or I'm begging for some sort of plea. And, you know, the best hope is that she doesn't testify. This little girl, you know, she may have bonded with her captors, she may have identified with him, but sooner or later, she's going to get back to reality, and she is going to defend her mom and her family, and that's when he's in trouble. If there's a deal to be got, he should try to get it.
And Randy, we need to say that police have not named him as a suspect in the murder. They did have a warrant out, and I believe it was a felony for abduction, but he has not been charged or named as a suspect in this murder. We just know, to go backwards just a little bit, that he was the boyfriend. He moved into the house with Brittany and her mother, and then we know that Brittany's mom was found dead and Brittany was gone from the house. So Mickey Sherman, criminal defense attorney, author of How Can You Defend Those People? That is my question to you. Who's going to take this case?
Oh, there'll be a lot of lawyers who'll take this case. Not necessarily for publicity or for money, but just because they believe it's the right thing to do. You know, in the noblest, spirit of criminal defense. A couple of observations that I'd just like to make is this case demonstrates the value of a couple of things. Number one, surveillance cameras, good quality surveillance cameras. And most importantly, the value of shows like the Nancy Grace show. Of course, the genre was invented by John Walsh. Just to get this person's name and picture out there is what saved this girl's life. And the last thing I just want to mention is how professional the police chief was in his news conference. He was just so media unsavvy, and I say that in the most admirable way. I don't know this, I do know this, I know that, I know this. He wasn't there to politic, he was there to say what he saw. It was like the real Andy Griffith.
Yeah, I got to say that's true. The folks who have been working on this case and publicly giving interviews have been wonderful and actually expressing their concern for Brittany and the family the entire time. And it's been refreshing to kind of see that taken. Sheila Ellis, you're a reporter for the Roanoke Times. You've been working on this story. You've actually had a lot of inside information on this. But you couldn't have seen this coming because we didn't see this coming tonight, this press conference in San Francisco. What have you learned, if anything, from your contacts since then about that?
Well, we know just as much as you guys do pretty much from after the press conference. As we heard, the police chief is not giving out much more information. We are just thrilled that Brittany is safe. We did speak with the grandmother, and she did say that they are ecstatic. She said that the families are, quote, bouncing off the walls.
Yeah, we spoke with Lois Chiquette, Brittany's great aunt, and said the same thing. And even as difficult as it is, just barely, not even a week after knowing that Brittany's mother was found murdered, but to know that Brittany is safe, the family seems to be kind of celebrating that moment. Just quickly, Jean Casares, I want to go back to you for just a second. Anything that you have found out since we saw that press conference that we need to know?
Yes, we've got some more information coming in, and what we're learning is that 4 detectives are actually going to be on their way from the Virginia area to San Francisco, 2 for Brittany and 2 for Easley. Now, if he fights extradition, they will be there for a while, but Brittany is currently in the custody of the Child Protective Services in California tonight.
And that is tricky. It's got to be. Jeff Gardier, you're a psychologist contributor to healthguru.com. When they're dealing with someone like Brittany, she's 12 years old. You know, we see these pictures and she looks older and she looks like she's confident. We've seen her Facebook pages and she has confidence, but she's just a child. And how do you go about getting information from her in this situation?
Well, the forensic physician that you had on earlier, I think, answered that question by saying you have to have someone who's trained, who has worked with kids, and who can understand that she's traumatized, and they have to do this very carefully. They have to gain her trust and go very slowly, Sam.
Oh, there's so much more to this story. We'll be right back.
I understand that she is well and she's not harmed. There are no visible signs of injury.
Is she in the care of social services now?
I don't know.
Did you locate the vehicle at all that Dodge, do you know?
It's my understanding they're still looking for the vehicle.
Wow, this has been a busy recording night. My goodness. What a little flip video.